Hello everyone, it's Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore, and welcome to the MuseScore Café. This is my regular Wednesday series where we talk about some aspect of making music using MuseScore. And this is our third Wednesday of the month, which I've been doing a series for quite some time now, where we just look at the issues involved in one single score. In other words, I'm going to enter one score myself, look at everything that comes up from what happens with the notes. The score we're going to look at today is going to have chord symbols and fretboard diagrams, text, all sorts of interesting things to need to enter. And that's what we're going to be looking at. And this is designed to tie into the project that we're working on within the cohort space. People who are in the basic theory course or who are gold level members will have access to that space. And we've been working on creating an arrangement kind of step by step of a piece by my brother Mike, kind of a Christian pop kind of rock song. And so we're going to be doing something that's in a similar style here, the pop rock style. And if you watched my video that I put out with the newsletter, you can guess what pop song we're going to be entering. It's Billy Don't Be a Hero. This is what we're going to be entering. There's a version of it on MuseScore.com, and I'm just going to be kind of copying it. So let's take a look at what's going to be involved here. So I have it pulled up on MuseScore.com. Let me grab that link. And is this the one? Yes. So I'm going to grab the link here and paste it into the chat in case anyone else wants to try along. And oh, by the way, as I do this, I do want to point out something about this score. It's what is called an official score. Did I get that wrong? Yeah, I got it wrong. I'm trying to get to where I can just click in here and paste my link, but I accidentally clicked the attach button. Okay, there we go. So this is the link to the score on MuseScore.com. And so I do want to say a word or two about this score. And what I'm going to do with this score actually is I'm going to pull the window out and I am going to pin it. Whoops, I hit the wrong button because I'm still like silly about knowing how to do these things. I can make it float, and then what you'll see is, at least in Chrome, if you get the window a certain width, you can get rid of all that side stuff. And so I've discovered that if I do this, I can get the window to be, just showing me a bare minimum of stuff, which is how I'm going to do the copying. So let's talk about what's actually going on here. This is what is called an official score. And these were actually provided by the publishers. The publishers of this music provided MuseScore with these arrangements. And they are there. It's sort of an odd thing where you can see them on MuseScore.com, but you can't download them. That is the thing. I think there might be some special super double secret Pro Plus account or something where you can download them if you pay a fee. I don't even know how that all works. But in general, these official scores are provided by the publishers, so they are exact duplicates of their published sheet music. They basically send MuseScore.com music XML files that they generated from, Finale or Sibelius or whatever they use, and then MuseScore.com takes those things and display them. So sometimes things go wrong in the music XML import, and they're a little funny looking, but generally speaking, the actual content of them should be as close as possible to what was actually the published sheet music, which, it is what it is. It's like this song wasn't, the people who sang this song didn't learn it from published sheet music. The people who originally wrote it sang it. Someone else covered it by learning it from the record, etc. But so what we're going to do is we're going to copy what we see here, and we're going to kind of fix anything that seems like it went wrong along the way. So that's part of why I'm telling you this here. So let's just get started here. Let's take a look at the whole thing again. Let me show it full screen again so we can see a little more to it. Full screen. There we go. So what we have here is what's called piano vocal guitar, PVG. It's the term used in the industry for this type of score, in which we have 2 staves for piano, a third staff for the vocal, and the vocal has the melody, but above it are also guitar chords and fretboard diagrams. And that third staff for the vocal, you'll notice, isn't present in the intro because there's no one singing in the intro, but there are guitar chords there above the piano part. So this is the basic format used in this kind of music. It's anyone who has played pop music from sheet music, you've seen this format 100 times. PVG is what it's referred to as. Let me pull up my chat on my other computer so I can be seeing it while I'm looking at other things here. So give me a moment. Chat. There we go. Okay. So this is what we're going to aim for. We're going to aim for this thing with a vocal staff and a piano staff, and then we'll add stuff to it. So let's flip back over to MuseScore here, and I'm going to tell it to create a new score. And there are some templates available that, you know, might possibly help in the thing. If I go to the choral section here, you'll see there's a voice plus piano template. And that's basically kind of what we're looking for. The thing is that this template, we'll probably end up using it, but it's really optimized more for classical voice and piano. And so there's some style settings and so forth that probably could be tweaked better. Could be tweaked to work with pop music better, and probably someone could come up with one. If I flip over to the popular section here, we see there's rock band and bluegrass band. And if we look at band and percussion, we see all these things, but none of these are PVG specifically, right? So I'm going to go with the voice plus piano template. And of course, you could also just choose the instruments individually. You could choose yourself a voice, and you could choose yourself a piano. But I am going to use the template just in case it did some style settings that will turn out to be useful. It's possible. I don't know. So I'll choose voice plus piano, and then I'll do the thing I don't usually do. Usually I get impatient and just double click it and get right on to the business of entering notes. But this time I do want to get all the title and all the other stuff set as well as I can. Let me again pin now. Well, I'm not going to pin the chat. I'm just going to look at it here. Okay. Ooh, big band, Neil Hefty Splanky. And yeah, I mean, if probably a photocopy of a photocopy or something. So yeah, and re-entering music into MuseScore just for that purpose is a really useful thing to know to do. So let's look at our original version here and see what's going on. Now, one thing that I know from having learned this song a bit just from listening to it is the original British recording from Paper Lace was in C. The Bo Donaldson and the Haywoods recording was in B flat. The published sheet music is in F. Why? I don't know, because the publisher felt like putting it in F. So we're just going to do that. So we're going to pick key of F here, key of F. Time signature is at 4/4. I think it is, unless they did something funny like put it in cut time. Nope, it's in 4/4. Tempo, is there a tempo marking on it here? Yes, it says 100. So I'll go ahead and enter a tempo marking. I'll say I want a tempo marking of 100. And for measures, I'll just leave it at 32 for now because I know we'll add measures later. And now we'll get some of this information here. Billy, is it Billy, comma? Don't be a hero. And is the capitalize? Oh yeah. So this is a thing they do in. This is a pretty common thing in a lot of publishers to do titles in all caps. Presumably, there's fonts that will do that for us. But let's get this. Did I get? There's a comma. Billy, comma. Don't be a hero. And composer. Words and Music by Peter Callender and Mitch Murray. Now notice that this text is right aligned, so that's what I'm going to want to do too. But I can't get multiple lines into this composer field, so I'm just going to put words and music by, is that how they did it? Words, capital, and music by. And then I'll add the rest of the information later. Is there a subtitle here? No, there's not a subtitle. And copyright information. There's, oh, look at all this ugly copyright information down here. I'm just going to put in the word copyright and worry about that. So I will worry about that later. Copyright. So that's as much information as I'm going to put in right now. And yes, and this is the information, Dave, that they provide about the official scores, that there's a license agreement that allows them to display, because they still want to sell. The publishers still want to sell the sheet music, but they have decided it's of enough benefit to them to let it be visible on MuseScore.com to increase the visibility of those songs. And users had been demanding it, or like calling for it, say, hey, we want to see the real sheet music, not, Joe Blow's arrangement of it. So it sort of serves everyone's purpose a little bit. But it's serving mine really nicely now because it gives me something to work from. So I have my music here, Billy, Don't Be a Hero. And I can see right now I accidentally put in a quote because I was holding shift and I put in double quotes instead of single quotes. So while I'm doing that, notice I just changed the title here. I'm also, let me delete that subtitle. And let's get these guys' names, Peter something or other. Now is the point at which I do want to float this guy again so I can be seeing them together, right? So now with this window floating, I can type into MuseScore and not lose what I'm looking at. Peter Calendar and Mitch Murray. There we go. Now, because I just changed both the title and the composer info, the next thing I want to do, and often I forget to do this, and I want to remind you that it's a thing, is come over here to Project Properties. And in Project Properties, we're going to fix the same things there. So the place where I accidentally entered a double quote, I want to fix that. And I'm just going to enter Peter. Could I use copy and paste here? Yeah, but sometimes just typing is simpler. Peter Calendar and Mitch Murray, and I'll just do the same stuff. So I've showed you how to do copyright symbols a bunch of times before, and it's frankly kind of a pain. I'm going to leave it blank right now. If your keyboard allows you to do things like press Alt 069, like on Windows, or on Mac, there's some special shortcut to get a copyright symbol. But if you don't know the special shortcuts, here's how to do it. Edit some text in MuseScore, press Shift F2 to open the special characters dialog, and then click the copyright symbol there. And now I can cut that symbol and go back to File, Properties, and paste it in. And yeah, it's got all this font crap that I can delete. I think in the next update, they're going to make it so it doesn't copy all that font stuff. So I can put in the appropriate copyright info here. I need to look at it bigger to see that again. So I want to get to the notes as soon as possible, but I do want to at least show you the basic stuff here. Copyright 1973, Intune Limited, all caps. Copyright 1973, Intune Limited, all caps. Now, one thing you'll notice is that the original copyright message was more than just one line, right? And this comes up pretty often. People wonder about this. It's multiple lines. Well, this line here, the copyright date and name of company, that's actually the entire copyright message. The rest of it is usage information on top of that. And you can enter that in MuseScore by going to the header directly. So I'm going to go to Format, Style, and then header and footer, and this $C in the footer is telling me that that is the copyright message, but then I can add all that usage information if I want also. I'm not going to type it all in, but anyhow, you can do that. You can put it in there, or you can copy and paste it in the copyright field if you feel like it. So those are possibilities there. Yeah, that's all I'll do for now. I'm not going to worry about that because let's get on with the music, shall we? Let me just catch up on chat here and see if anyone else had anything here. Save. Good idea, Colleen. I'm going to save. Control S, save. I will go to my Mastering MuseScore community folder, and I will save this guy. Ooh, notice that it just gave it a title that still had that double quote in it. Oh, well. Do I care? I'll worry about that later. Let's see. So I've got this information here. Now, there's a few things to note already. One is the tempo marking here is just the tempo itself, but our original score, which I'm now going to pin again, I'm going to do the float window again. The original score actually says reflectively, and then quarter equals 100 in parentheses. There we go. I'm trying to get this sized nicely for myself. So I want to get that in here. So I'm going to come here and type reflectively, put quotes around the tempo, and they have this part not boldface. So I'll go ahead and select that, and then here in properties, turn off the boldface. Also, if we look at their score, they've notated the vocal part here with just a treble clef, which is fine. This note here would be this D, the first note of the melody would be the D above middle C. Now, this is not the actual octave it's sung in. Well, first of all, it's not even the key it's sung in. No male voice is going to sing it in that octave there. So this it's pretty common that we would sing it an octave lower, and MuseScore is putting in the clef that indicates that. But that clef is used in classical music for tenor voice. It is not used in pop sheet music. So this is one of the things that I would have, if we were going to create an actual PVG template, it's one of the things we would do a little bit differently. So I'm going to come over here to the palettes, and I'm just going to change that to a standard treble clef. Now, at some point, once I have enough of these details figured out, I can save this score to my templates folder and call it PVG, and then I will actually have, a template that I can use that's got some of this stuff set up. But I have a feeling there's going to be a few more style settings and so forth that I'll want to fiddle with. And I'm also going to take this window and make it a little smaller so I can see the chat at the same time. I'm gradually getting better at figuring out how to do all this business of, seeing multiple things at once. So I can see my score, I can see the chat, and I can see the music that I'm working on. It's it's a bit of a challenge, but I'm figuring it out. Okay, so let's see. And by the way, weather-wise, for those curious, Colorado in Denver right now, a little bit a little cooler than it's been. It was hinting at rain and might rain more. It's a cooler day today. I was appreciating that riding my bike in. All right, so we've got this set up. Is there anything else I feel like I need to set up before I start entering stuff? I think not. The lyrics look like the way you did it. No, I don't think so, Colleen, because what you had was a single syllable with using hyphens. And I don't think that happens in here. The hyphens in here are for multiple syllable words, soldier, or behind, across. That's what use hyphens for. If there's a single word that goes across multiple notes, that's when you use the melisma lines. And I'm pretty sure that they do that anywhere. Oh, here, the word on is going across two notes. Really, it only sounds like one note because of the tie, but in any case, it's a single melisma line. So a single syllable or the last syllable of a word gets those melisma lines. So that's what I remembered having going on with yours, but I could also be misremembering. All right, so what I want to do here is let's get in part of that piano part here, and then we'll worry about the fact that the vocal part doesn't show up, right? That there's no vocal staff here. So I'm going to enter those piano notes, and so I'll start with the right hand, and an N for note input, 5 for quarter note, and I'll type a C down an octave, F, and A. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the R command to repeat that whole chord. It's a kind of useful thing. You know, if you've entered a full chord, typing R will repeat the whole chord. And then notice the next chord is the same chord, but it's an eighth note. Well, I can type 4R, and now I get an eighth note version of that same chord. That's a nice, handy shortcut to know about when entering, especially piano music, because we often will have chords that need to perhaps repeat. All right, so now I need a quarter note, 5, and then D and G, eighth note, D and F, and then eighth note, D and A, G, quarter note, D and G, eighth note, D and B flat, quarter note, C and A, eighth note, B flat and G. So far, so good. Next, we need triplets. So for triplets, if you haven't learned to do these already, what you'd first do is think about the total duration of the triplet, or same with quadruplets or anything else. You think about the total duration and make sure that is set on the toolbar. The total duration of that triplet there is 1 beat, right? It's 1 quarter note. So I'm going to select the quarter note duration by pressing 5. Now I can press Control 3 to divide it into thirds. So now I have my triplet, and I can enter the notes, B flat and G. And by the way, when I say B flat and G, these chords, notice I'm using shift. I'm typing B, and then shift G to enter the chords. And then C, shift A, B flat, shift G, and then a half note, A and F, and then a quarter note, G. Oops, I didn't hit the quarter note. Let me just undo that. 5 for the quarter note, and then G, not in that octave, so Control up. That's actually the first time since the beginning I had to fix octaves, and then shift C. So now I've finished the first line of the piano part here. And I think the next thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hit enter. I don't always do this, but if I hit enter right now, it will add that line break there so that I now have my first line, you know, looking the way I want it to look, right? So yeah, Dave, good observations about the voice, and yeah, everyone can read the comment there. And yeah, the 8 below the staff is commonly used in vocal arrangements in which, I shouldn't say it's just classical music, because it's also like any choral music in which you do S, A, T, and B on separate staves. The tenor is written on treble clef with an 8 below it is most typical. But that's choral arrangements that do that. And I think it's done that way to make sure the octaves are super clear. It's probably less commonly done with the octave symbol in Lieder, in which it's meant to be a little more generic, because anything sung by a tenor could be sung by an alto an octave higher, right? So, and glad you're enjoying the shortcuts, Rachel. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is get to the left hand, because that's going to be pretty simple here, and I'll show you a couple other things. So one thing I can see is that I'm still in note input mode. Often what I do is I just press escape, click that measure, and press N to go back to to get back to note input mode on the right measure. But I should mention, you know, where the cursor was before was here, right? My cursor was in the next measure. I can move it back to the beginning. I can hit Control right a few times to move it back to the beginning, and then the shortcut to move down a staff. I've customized it to be left bracket, and it actually moves one note at a time, so you can hear it going through the individual notes and then down to the bottom staff. Normally, though, that shortcut is Alt-Shift down. It's just that Alt-Shift down is reserved to do something else on my keyboard. Okay, so now that I'm on the correct staff, 5 dot, and then C, and a lower C. So these notes, when we enter chords using keyboard shortcuts with note and then shift other note, they always have to be entered bottom to top, which is actually pretty natural for piano music, right? If you think about, if I asked you what notes were in a C chord, you would tell me C, E, G. You probably wouldn't tell me G, E, C, right? We normally name the chords bottom to top. So in many situations, that bottom to top is very convenient. But there's other situations where you're arranging music where you've first written in the melody and now you want to write in some notes below it, in which you kind of wish there were shortcuts to enter below the melody. And all I can say is, I feel your pain, and someday we'll probably come up with a good way of doing that, because there's only so many shortcuts available. All right, so Shift C now will add that octave, and then I can do 4R to repeat. And now I could try to get fancy and say, hey, let's copy that chord and then transpose it up to D, but it's not complicated enough. I'm just going to type the chord. 6, D, Shift D, 5, dot, B, Shift B, 4, R, 6, C, Shift C, 5, dot, F, Shift F, 4, R, 5R, 4CC. Ooh, not that octave. I went too fast for myself, but I just cursor back and control up both of them up. Okay? So I've got the piano part in for that first line. Since I'm on the subject, well, first of all, I'm going to save it. And now I'm going to select that chord. And let's come to the Dynamics palette and just get that MF in there. Next thing I need are the chord symbols and fretboard diagrams, right? So some of this stuff is, and notice that these fretboard diagrams are attached to the piano staff because there is no vocal staff. So that's how I'm going to do it here. We will make the vocal staff disappear in a moment, but I want to finish entering this piano staff first before I deal with that. So we come to the first note, and I'll go to the fretboard diagrams palette, and I will add me that F chord. And I think this is the F chord. So if you hover over it, you will see the name of the chord, and I think screen readers read that as well. So this has added that F chord, and now I can click beat 3 and D minor 7. Okay, so already I've got two chords that aren't going to be covered exactly correctly, because this F chord, that is an F chord, but notice it looks different. This F is showing as a bar chord. In the sheet music, it's not showing as a bar chord because it's written as F over C. So I'm going to have to change this thing, right? So I added the F chord, but I'll need to customize it. I will add a D minor chord, and then I will customize that also. So let's go ahead and do this customization. So already we're kind of digging into those details. So for this F chord, it looks like they've done a little partial bar just across the two highest strings. So let's select our fretboard diagram, come over to properties, and what I'm going to do to add bars, there's a couple ways of doing it, but shift click will remove a bar or add a bar, or you could click the bar button and then click. But I'm just going to use shift click, and I think if I shift click, no, if I shift click right here, watch what it does. It does a partial bar, but it does the wrong version of that partial bar. So I'm going to actually remove this thing, and then I'm just going to add it by shift clicking right there on the whatever that is, G string. Nope, wrong string, second string. Dun, dun, dun. And notice there's an X above the E string, the low E string. Don't get fooled like I have before and think it's about this X here. These X that show in the properties panel, these are about how the fret marks appear, whether they appear as solid dots or X's or squares or triangles. If you want an X appear above the string, what we're going to do is actually click above the string. And first it gives us an O to tell us that it's meant to be played open, or an X. Someone who's a guitar player can help me out with this. My impression is that the O doesn't really tell you anything in particular. It's more like a courtesy accidental. It just tells you, yes, in case you were wondering, play this string. I think that's the case. I believe that's the case, that the O just tells you to play that string open, which you probably would have done anyhow. But if there was any doubt in the matter, like look at that D minor 7, there's 2 strings not played, and then this third one doesn't have any marker on it at all. Someone looking at it might look at it and go, gee, I wonder if I'm supposed to even play that string. So someone looking at it, so with or without the O, you play that string open, right? That's what I guess what I'm wondering. With or without the O, you do the same thing. The O is just there to make sure you know that. So I have that F chord there. Let's go ahead now to the F. So muted string, at least on guitar. On ukulele, it might mean a muted string, but on guitar, it means don't play it at all. Is really what it normally means. And that is so that the low note will in fact be a C. So the chord is supposed to be F with a C bass. And so we don't want to use the E string at all, because that would have to be fretted way up too high to get a C out of it. So here it means don't play it at all. Maybe that's what you meant by muted, because mute can mean that. But it can mean something else. It can mean play it, but let it give a thud sound rather than a pitch. So I've got my fretboard diagram the way I want. Let's go ahead and edit the chord symbol to say F over C. And now that looks good. So that's all well and good. So what I want to do next is take that thing and let's just add it to our palette here. So there's my F chord, there's an F minor, there's an F7. Let's just add this chord to the palette too. Control, Shift, drag, and now I got myself an F over C chord should I need one again, which there's a reasonable chance I will. All right, let's take a look at the D minor now. Same process here. Let's just go ahead and fix the chord symbol name first, D minor 7. And let's look at how their fretboard diagram differs from what I got here. They've got XXO, I have XXO. They have the next string on 2nd fret, but then they have a bar across the top 2. So again, I'm going to hit Shift click to create the bar, and I will click the dot that's here a little further up to get rid of that dot. And now my fret diagram looks just like theirs as far as I can tell. So good. All right, well, we're getting deep into fret diagrams, and this is why I gave you the little warm-up in the newsletter. The tip of the week had to do with fret diagrams, because I knew we were going to need that for this, and I wanted this to, wanted us to have a head start on some of these things. So B flat. So yeah, the default palette. Oh, let's add the D minor 7 to our palette also, shall we? So that's the D7, and then here's E. So it's going to go in right after that. Oops. I didn't get the shift. Control Shift drag right in here. And now I got my D minor 7. All right. So next, I'm going to save my score again, because why not? I need a B flat major 7. And so here again, wow, look at that crazy thing. Is that really a thing? Is that, wait a minute, seriously? No, this is crazy talk. Some guitar player, please tell me this is crazy talk. Oh, no. I mean, this can't possibly. This is probably one of these Music XML imported wrong things. I mean, look at what we got here. We've got a bar at the 1st fret across all strings but the low string. And then we also have another bar at the 3rd fret across just the D string through the B string. And then we also have another finger fretting in between those 2 bars, accomplishing absolutely nothing, right? That makes no sense. That there would be no reason to have to put a finger down on that fret. Now, having 2 bars, I could imagine that being a thing. It sounds hard, and I have to imagine there's a better way to play B flat major 7 than that, but I can't live with that. And unfortunately, the default palette doesn't have any B flat chords at all. It goes straight from our A chords to our B chords, right? It doesn't have accidentals at all. So we're going to have to get a little creative here. So one thing I'm going to do is really quickly, I'm going to just do a quick web search for B flat major 7 fret diagram and see what other people suggest. Here's one that looks like a bar with some fingers on it. This seems reasonable. It's yeah, this seems much more reasonable to me. So I'm going to go with not exactly that, because what they're showing, no, this is at fret 6. Oh, that's something else entirely. Yeah, none of these are really making me happy. So this one here, is this one good? This one looks good to me. So, check it out. Check out. This is basically what they have. It's a bar across on the 1st fret, and then it is something being played there on the 3rd fret and something being played on the 2nd fret, but it's definitely not barred across there, because that would have invalidated that note there on the G string on the 2nd fret. That bar is invalidating that this G string at 2nd fret is an A. So this is turning it into another B flat, not what you want at all. So this version is basically that same thing, but with the bar removed. That's what I want. So let's go ahead and add that. How am I going to do this? I'm just going to start by adding an F chord, because it's kind of similar. And now I'm going to come to properties and change what I need. So I will see if I can get this going here. Shift click in my bar, get rid of that dot, and then I have this dot on the 2nd fret, that dot on that fret, this dot on this fret, and boom, there's my B flat major 7. There's my B flat major 7. I think that's good. Now, wouldn't it be cool if MuseScore could play back your fretboard diagrams? I feel like that would be a pretty cool thing. I mean, it will play chord symbols, but it doesn't look at the fretboard diagram. It just uses sort of a generic algorithm for voicing the chord. It's actually got several algorithms and ways of tweaking it, but at no point does it actually look at the fretboard diagram. That seems like sort of a no-brainer enhancement that someone should think about implementing someday. Hint to anyone here who is a developer looking for a interesting little project to do. So, and I'm happy to help with that process. So now I want to edit the chord symbol itself to say B flat MAJ 7, and I'll make sure again. So yeah, I fixed their error. Oh, I need the X. I need the X. So I'm going to click above that E string. First I get the O, click again to get the X. So now I have my B flat major 7. I have corrected their error. Let's come back over to the palettes and add that guy to our palette. So now we have our B flat major 7 in there also. All right, well, that was a whole lot of customization we needed to do. The C7 I think is going to go somewhat easier. Here's C7 here. Does it match? Because there's multiple ways of playing C7, right? These are the ones that most, beginning guitar books are going to show you. But I can tell you no jazz player in history would ever play C7 like that. They wouldn't play it with open strings, and they wouldn't play it that low on the, I shouldn't say never, but that is not a typical jazz way of playing a C7. And it's not the only way of playing a C7. And in point of fact, in my brother Mike's song, I'm pretty sure he plays C7s not like that. He plays them as bar chords because he's played other chords as bar chords. So there you go. Okay, so now I'm good with this, and I think I now have that whole, there's still another chord, of course. What is that other chord? It's another F chord. So, and this is just a plain F triad, not one of those F over C's. So I should just be able to add this F from the palette, and it's good to go also right away. So, yay, I have the first line of piano music in there. Yay. So now the good news about fret diagrams is, notice I've been adding them back to my palette. If you do this enough, you'll eventually have a pretty full palette of fretboard diagrams that then you can easily reuse as necessary, right? And people should be able to share these things. Someone, who was it who just posted their fret diagram? Someone just, no, they didn't post. Someone was just asking about banjo diagrams or saying that they had created some. And I pointed out that, yeah, you could probably share that, then, save. Oh, yeah, because let me show you how to do that. If you come over to the fretboard diagrams palette, the ... menu here, say save palette. And it will let you save this to any location you want. You save it wherever you want, give it the name you want. I think it'll put in an extension of .mpal, MuseScore palette. But that's the normal extension, so I would give it that extension, .mpal. And to save that thing wherever you want it, give whatever name you want it, and then you can send that file to someone else, and then they can load it by just going anywhere in their palettes and saying, well, I got to close that window first. Then they will be able to click the ... menu and say load palette and load the palette that you just sent them. And then they will have their own version of your palette. So, it's a nice feature that you can save and load palettes. All right. So now that I've got this in here, let's talk finally about that vocal staff that's empty here. It's empty there, but it's not empty. It's only empty because there's no notes in it. The next system is going to have some notes. So let's go ahead and get some notes into that system. And there's also only going to be 3 measures there. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this because I'm going to try to copy their layout because it's going to simplify things for me. I could certainly not, if I was doing this myself, I wouldn't have anything to copy, right? If I was entering my own sheet music, like we're going to do for Mike's song, for Rise Up and Shine, we're going to decide for ourselves where to put our breaks and so forth, because, MuseScore is going to choose some places for us, but we'll probably want to make better choices. And I'll talk about how that will go, when we get there. But in any case, for this piece, I do want to copy their layout to the extent I can. So I've put in my line break, so I've only got 3 here. Let's go ahead and get in that vocal line here. So in this measure, 4/0 for the 8th rest, D, down an octave, and then D, G, quarter note, G, D, 4 for 8th notes, D, G, quarter note, G, A, G. All right, so I've entered those notes. As I entered them, I wasn't paying attention to this, but I'm now noticing that the default beaming in MuseScore is different than what they use. And this is one of the places, in general, the default beaming in MuseScore is going to be very good, very much the way modern editors do it, but with a couple exceptions, and this is one of the exceptions. Groupings of 3/8 notes, either 3/8 notes preceded by a rest, or 3/8 notes followed by a rest. Some editors will allow this, 8th rest followed by 3 beamed 8th notes, but this editor did not, right? They broke the beam there. And I am of mixed opinion on that. I have no strong opinion on that, but I am going to copy what they did there, if for no other reason than to make sure you know how to do it. But I will say that 3/8 notes followed by an 8th rest definitely do not beam. Because it's going to look too much like a triplet. I think the logic of allowing it, if the rest comes first, is once we see the rest, we're sort of primed to know that the next 3/8 notes complete the beat, as opposed to start a triplet. But if you see 3/8 notes at the start of a beat, the brain goes into triplet mode. And yeah, the fact that there's no 3 there, you would figure out it wasn't. But yeah, you don't want to figure out. You want to quickly recognize patterns. And that's what music notation is all about, rules to help you do things consistently so we can recognize patterns. So in any case, in this case, with the rest first, technically we don't need to break that beam, but I'm going to do it anyhow. So I'm going to select that second D, come over to Properties, and under Beam, click the Start or Break Beam Left, and it will break the beam to the left. So I'm looking over at comments and just seeing things here. So yeah, just making sure that I'm not missing any important questions. By the way, Rachel, you did have a question when you add customized things. Yes, I did miss that question. And so the answer to that question is that it stays. However, important caveat here. I have 2 scores open now, right? I have this score and I have the cafe theme music. I'm making these customizations here, but in the cafe theme, I've got like different stuff going on, and I might be making other customizations there. In general, what I'm doing right here is a bit dangerous. I'm making customizations to a palette while I have another window open. And now it's going to depend on what order I close these windows in as to which one is going to win. Because one score's customization might clobber another score's customizations. So I will recommend two things. I will recommend first closing all other scores. If you're going to do a bunch of palette customization, close your other scores first so that when you do this customization, you are doing it with only one window open. And then when you're done, immediately close MuseScore and reopen it. And that forces it to make sure it saves those customizations. It's a little bit of a pain that that's the case, but that's my recommendation. Also, you can, when we're done with all this, if I really cared about keeping all this, I would click the ... and do Save Palette. So if you're doing a lot of customizations to a particular palette and you really want to make sure that, because this is a lot of work doing all that fretboard diagram stuff, I would probably do the Save Palette. But if you only have one window open, then yes, and then you close MuseScore when you're done with that customization, those palette customizations get saved and it will apply to all scores. But yeah, those are good caveats to know. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get in those other two chord symbols, and then we're going to put in a couple lyrics and the repeat bar, and then we'll talk about the fact that staff doesn't show on the first system. So let's put in some lyrics here. I'll select that first note, Control L. The march -ing band came down a long Main Street, comma. All right. Now, notice that there's actually three sets of lyrics there. I'm going to go ahead and put in another verse because why not? I'm going to go back to that first note, hit Control L again, and notice it goes ahead and puts it on a new line for me. But you can also, while you're entering lyrics, use up and down arrows to move between things, or to go down to the next line still, I could hit enter and it will add a new line for me and I can start the next line of lyric. I heard his fiancé. Look at that word say. It's got a E with an accent mark on it. We get to learn how to do that too. I'm going to press, and my keyboard does have a way of doing that, but if you don't know how to do that on your particular keyboard, that's fine. I'm going to use Shift F2 to bring up that special characters palette and find the E with the accent. It's got to be the E going in the right way, right? This is the acute accent as opposed to the grave accent, if I remember my Latin terms correctly. So now I've got my E accent and I can type the other E. If you're going to do a lot of that sort of stuff, you could also then drag those accented characters into one of your own custom palettes here. And that way you could easily find those accented E's. In fact, I did that on one of my systems. I created a custom palette called Lyrics, where I basically dragged in a whole bunch of accented characters. But I think that's on my other system, and I don't think I saved that palette and loaded it into here. So there's those lyrics, and then this one, the soldier blues were trapped on a hill. Nope, what did I do wrong? The soldier blues were trapped on a, oh, no, I did nothing wrong, hillside. Now they are calling hillside two separate words. And, okay, I guess that's how it is in the sheet music, but I think of hillside as being one word. I don't know about you. So I probably would have entered that as with a hyphen in there. But I don't know. Comma. Let's just finish that line because I'm practically there. Beyonce, space, got a letter. There we go. Save again. Let's add our chord symbols, fretboard diagrams, and here these are going to be easy ones, I think. Select that guy. Where's my G minor? Here's my G minor. And by the way, yes, you don't see these. You don't see the chord symbol names here, so it's a little bit of a drag to figure out what is what. But when you hover over it, it shows the name. But I will tell you, they are in order, right? Starting with C. First the C chords, then the D chords, then the E's, then the F's, and then the G's, and the A's, and then the B's. And the other thing to know, as a general rule of thumb, on most of these chords, the ones that involve frets, the ones that involve bars are the black note chords. Chords that, well, no, yeah, I can't even say that. Flat. I was going to say ones in flat keys, but B chords have bars too. No, that's the B flat chord, but this is a B chord. Anyhow, the G minor chord has B flats in it, and I sort of recognized that that probably was going to be a bar chord. So I sort of guessed it was somewhere around there. But yeah, you have to hover around to find your chord. That's the way it goes. All right. And the reason it doesn't show with the chord symbol names in the palette is it's tricky to get it to do that correctly, given transposition and all that. We tried to do it at one point and it didn't work. So someone at some point will fix it so the chord symbol names actually show up in the palette, but it hasn't happened yet. Let's go ahead and get our C7 in there, and now let's get the repeat bar line in there. So the way the start repeat works is I'm going to select that measure, and now I'll go to the repeats palette or the bar lines palette. There's a bar lines palette here, and there's a repeats and jumps palette, and they both have that left start repeat sign, and I can add it, and boom, there it is. So we now have, I don't have the piano accompaniment here, but I do have what I need. To be able to now have what I need for that vocal part on this system, to be able to now show you how to make sure that is hidden where it needs to be hidden. So the thing is, the piano part is always two staves. In jazz charts, it's pretty common that the piano part would maybe collapse down to one staff. In passages where we're only using chord symbols and we're not putting notes, we would very often collapse it down to one staff. But in this style of music, first of all, in all classical music, but also in pop sheet music, we never do that. Even if there's a passage where the left hand or the right hand is doing nothing. And there is a place in this piece where ostensibly, when it goes, when it says, Billy, keep your head low, that chord just sustains, and there might be a measure that's empty. We don't want this. We don't want the music to disappear just because there's some empty stuff in the piano part, but we do in the vocal part. So the way I'm going to make sure the piano part stays intact, but the vocal part goes away where we don't need it, is I'm going to right click that vocal part, go to staff part properties, and then check the option. No, not check the option. The thing that says hide when empty. It's a drop down list. I'm going to change it from auto. And auto means it'll hide if we're hiding empty score. If we're hiding empty staves in general for the whole score, this one will also. But I don't want to hide them for the whole score. Like I said, I want to keep the piano always intact. But this one, the vocal staff, I want to hide when empty. So I set it to always. And when I do that and hit enter, what we see is that vocal staff now disappears in that intro where it's gone. Now, what we'll also see is that it disappeared everywhere else too. So I personally don't bother hiding that empty staff until I'm done, because otherwise it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to enter notes onto that vocal staff like here. But a pain in the butt isn't impossible. And Cheyenne, I know you've talked about doing this. If I'm in note input mode, I can use that same shortcut. Remember that shortcut I used to go up and down staves? I can use that shortcut to move to that vocal staff, even though I can't see it. So I'm on the top staff of the piano. I'm now going to hit right bracket, which is the shortcut to move up a staff on my system. For you, it's Alt Shift up. And we didn't see anything happen, but pay attention to the status bar. I just moved back down. It says rest, blah, 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 staff 2, piano. Watch what happens when I hit my shortcut to go up. I hit my shortcut to go up, and I lost the little thing that's where you can see it, but take my word for it, I just pressed the shortcut. Now it says staff 1 up. The cursor still looks like it's on the piano staff, but it's lying. We're actually on staff 1, the voice staff. So now I can enter a note, and now that staff isn't empty anymore, and I can start entering notes onto it. Now, why is it displaying so funny here? I don't know. Probably has something to do with the hiding of empty staves and the, oh, I just woke up and I'm not fully awake yet. I don't know what that's about. I'm going to look into that later. But normally I just don't bother even trying to enter. I don't hide empty staves until I'm done. All right. So the question here is, should we worry about being consistent with attaching to the same line of music? Okay. So that is a good question. And the only reason I was not consistent is specifically because I knew I was going to hide that staff. Logically, I would much rather have attached those fretboard diagrams to the top staff consistently. And then I would have hoped that the empty staff would disappear, but leave the fretboard diagrams behind. But it don't work that way. If that staff has fretboard diagrams on it, it's not empty. And when you hide empty staves, it's not going to go anywhere. If you forced them to go away, they would take the fretboard diagrams with them. In other words, there's no way to hide just the staff, but leave the fretboard diagrams behind. The fretboard diagrams are just as much as notes or anything out like that. And yes, I'm always happy to win out over Peter Martin talking about jazz piano because, yeah, hopefully we each have interesting things to say. So yeah, we're getting to a good wrapping up place here, and I do want to know if there's any specific questions. The palette, you're talking about the palettes moving characters into the a palette here. Did I do it on this one, my text palette? No, I think it's on my other system that I work on more. I use this system for these streams because it's hooked up to my whole setup, and I use a different system for my day-to-day work usually. I'm not going to claim that there's nothing else that we ever need to learn to do in entering this PVG sheet music, but I am saying that I think we've covered most of the things that might happen. But let's go ahead and get this first measure, at least, of the piano part on the second system, because we got a couple new things. 16th notes, shortcut 3, A, C, and then G, then 8th note F, and then a tie. So if you haven't done ties before, or if you've only done ties in MuseScore 3 or earlier versions and are trying to figure out how to do them with shortcuts in MuseScore 4, I want to tie that F to a half note, so I'll type 6 for the half note. The shortcut is T. T will enter the tie. Ties are always the notes of the same pitch, so it enters the note for you. You don't have to enter the F and then tie it. MuseScore knows, oh, you're tying it? Of course it's to an F. What else could it possibly be? Fs can only be tied to Fs. Okay, technically they can be tied to E sharps. If I press the J key, it will respell that F as, other things. And so I could totally enter the note, respell it, and then tie it. But anyhow, normally F is only tied to F. So when you type T, it enters the note and ties it for you. In MuseScore 3, instead of T, it's plus. So that measure is done. I'll hit my down shortcut to move to the bottom staff. 5 dot, F, down an octave with control down, shift F, and then 4, F, boom, 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 and then plus for the sharp, and then type F, and then 6 G. So let me hit save again. So at this point, we've really done, the rest of the score is going to be more of the same stuff. I'm sure somewhere in it is something we haven't seen. But we got to see a lot of the techniques that you're going to need in doing PVG sheet music. I want to wrap up just by looking at a couple other things about the formatting of this. Like if I cared that they have the words and music by a little further from the title, I could, first of all, I could just move that text up, or I could shrink the frame. Right now, the frame is 10 10 staff spaces, but if I start making it smaller, actually it doesn't do that because it's like has this automatic sizing thing. I have to drag it. But if I drag it smaller, I can drag it smaller if I want, or I can just move that text. There's things you can do, but I don't have any special preference. Oh, let me change it back to 10. Resetting it made it 0. I think theirs looks too crowded. And I think that largely comes about because of the Music XML import. I think the default actually looks better, so I'm going to leave it alone. But once I'm done with any of these other settings that I might make, so far I haven't changed any style settings. I sort of expected I would, but I never actually changed any style settings. But if I did, once I was happy with it, I would want to save this score to my templates folder. So I would say File, Save As, and then instead of my scores folder, I would go up a level and then go into my templates folder and save it here and call it PVG. Oops, not search for PVG, but actually type in PVG as the name of the score. And then when you do that, it will then be available to use in the future, and all those same style settings will be there, and the same instrument settings. I guess the only thing I changed was that clef, but just wasn't worth the time. So in any case, that's what I would recommend doing when if you've set up a score with a lot of fancy customizations to things like style settings, then save it to your templates folder, and I've covered that on other topics. So that's what I wanted to show you. So let's finish out here. Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for the comments and questions. And yeah, we covered a lot of good stuff here. What else do I want to tell you? What I want to tell you here is tomorrow, Music Masterclass, right? We'll be diving more into my brother Mike's piece, Rise Up and Shine. We're looking at, I know a couple people have already posted your transcriptions of the chords. Listen to that. Head over if you're members there. Head over to the cohort space. Listen. Try to figure out the chords, and let's talk more about the rhythms too. Colleen, you put in some good comments about the nature of the rhythms, because what we're trying to do is getting ready to create our own keyboard accompaniment. So we want to make sure we understand what the chords are, understand what the rhythms we're trying to convey are, and then next week we'll actually try to construct some piano accompaniment from it. So tomorrow's session is going to be all about that. We're going to be listening to the music, making sure we understand the chords, not just what they are, but we'll dive into the theory too and make sure you understand why those chords work they do. And hint, Billy Don't Be a Hero is relevant. That minor 4 chord is relevant. What I'm not saying the minor 4 chord happens exactly in Rise Up and Shine, but there's something that's very connected to it, and I want people to see if you can discover what that is before I tell you. So anyhow, see you all tomorrow, or whenever I see you.